Yu-Wen trembled, his face turning purple as he coughed up blood. He begged for forgiveness, his voice strained, admitting that he had been a fool and blind to not notice Li Haoran's greatness. Li Haoran's mind flashed back to memories of betrayal, a haunting familiarity. He recalled that he had once been treated the same way, discarded like worthless trash. He remembered that the man responsible had been a registered evolver from the elite center. Because of that, he found it even harder to forgive Yu-Wen. With a cold glare, Li Haoran hurled Yu-Wen through the air. In an instant, he closed the distance and delivered a devastating punch to Yu-Wen's stomach, the force so immense it nearly tore through him. Yu-Wen shot backward like a cannonball, crashing into the ground and sending cracks radiating through the earth. He bounced violently, shattering the frozen block encasing Zhengzhe before finally skidding to a stop in a deep crater, his body broken and bleeding. As Li Haoran felt the overwhelming power of the blood demon god coursing through him, he wondered if he would ever truly possess this strength permanently. Meanwhile, Li Haoran watched in stunned silence. She thought to herself if this was the same vampire who had bitten her earlier. Her mind raced as she questioned whether this terrifying power had always been within him and if he had let her win before. Nico trembled with joy, overwhelmed by the sheer magnitude of his newfound power. Meanwhile, Zhengzhe finally managed to shatter the ice block that had trapped him. He muttered to himself, acknowledging that a momentary slip had gotten him caught, but he had escaped. As he brushed himself off, his eyes fell on Li Haoran. He remarked on Li Haoran's nice cape, but questioned why he was standing in such a position. Before Zhengzhe could react, Li Haoran unleashed a red storm from his cape, a portal that summoned a swarm of bats. The creatures surged toward Zhengzhe, their razor-sharp teeth tearing into his flesh. Terrified, Zhengzhe flailed wildly, swatting at the bats, but they surrounded him completely, stripping him to the bone in moments. Damn, those bats worked faster than the flesh-eating beetles used in museums. The system chimed repeatedly, notifying Li Haoran that he had leveled up 5 times and earned 25 attribute points. Li Haoran grinned, pleased with the gold-level enemy he had defeated. He had permanently unlocked the Red Storm ability, which summoned a swarm of bats to attack enemies, dealing massive damage, especially effective against multiple targets. Li Haoran's attention then shifted to Yu-Wen, who lay on the ground, begging for mercy. Li Haoran asked what he had said and demanded that he speak louder. Yu-Wen trembled, his voice weak and desperate, as he pleaded for his life. He claimed that his father was the president of the elite center and promised to give Li Haoran anything he wanted if he were spared. Li Haoran smirked and used his devil hand to lift Yu-Wen into the air. He offered to help Yu-Wen go home. As the force lifted him, Yu-Wen stammered his gratitude, swearing that he would repay Li Haoran. Li Haoran chuckled, dismissing the need for repayment and expressing his enjoyment of helping others. He wished Yu-Wen a safe and pleasant journey. With a burst of strength, Li Haoran launched Yu-Wen at breakneck speed, shattering the sound barrier. Yu-Wen tore through mountains, hurtling towards City J, before crashing into a tall white building with a deafening explosion. Instantly, another system notification flashed informing Li Haoran that he had leveled up 5 times and earned 25 attribute points. Hearing the prompt, Li Haoran thought to himself that he had received experience and assumed Yu-Wen had made it home safely. He reflected that he had leveled up again, though he noted that, in theory, he should have gained even more experience. He concluded that the higher the level, the more it takes to progress. As Li Haoran turned to face Li Haoran, she stammered, her voice trembling, and asked what he was planning to do. She nervously questioned if it was her turn now. Ignoring her for a moment, Li Haoran shifted his gaze to Nico. He told Nico that there was something he was curious about and that he needed her help. Li Haoran's eyes flickered with unease as she wondered if this had anything to do with her. Nico, brimming with excitement, responded eagerly. She declared that at Master Haoran's command, he had full control over her. Li Haoran then activated his skill, Soul Resonance. Nico's body tensed as a surge of energy flooded her chest, as though something immense was struggling to break free. Her breath grew heavy, and confusion washed over her. She wondered if something like this had been hidden within her all along, her voice trembling as she spoke. She pleaded with Li Haoran, asking if this was his sacred sword. She exclaimed that it was too much, and that she couldn't handle it. She begged him to pull it out gently, her body shaking uncontrollably. Li Haoran gripped the hilt of the sword emerging from her and began to pull it out slowly, reassuring her. He explained that this was the result of their soul resonance, and told her there was nothing to worry about. He encouraged her to hold on a little longer. With a final tug, he fully extracted the sword, releasing a burst of radiant energy. As he held the blade, a thought crossed his mind. He reflected that the soul resonance skill only activated when the bond with a follower was at its strongest. Through this connection, a unique piece of equipment emerged from the follower's essence, the blood blade. Bred so, he concluded that this was the gift Nico had given him. Li Haoran, visibly uneasy, asked Li Haoran if he really planned to use the sword he had drawn from Nico's chest to kill her. She pointed out that with his strength, he surely didn't need the weapon to defeat her. Li Haoran smirked in response and swung the sword in a swift arc. A crimson energy strike sliced through the air, shredding Li Haoran's dress and leaving her in only her undergarments and stockings. At first unaware, she suddenly felt the cool air and realized she was nearly exposed. Clutching herself, Li Haoran trembled with embarrassment and glared at him, accusing him of being unfair. She demanded that if he was going to kill her, he should just do it and not humiliate her like that. Li Haoran's voice remained calm but firm as he told her that was enough. He explained that it had just been a test and instructed her to follow him to the grove unless she wanted to share the fate of the others. He added that they needed to talk. Once they reached the grove, Li Haoran's gaze lingered on Li Haoran, who avoided his eyes, her thoughts racing. She wondered what he wanted and why he was being silent. She found it suspicious that he had brought her there alone. Reflecting on how he had spared her before and still hadn't killed her, she concluded that there was only one explanation. He had fallen for her and wanted to exploit her beauty. Despite being a vampire, she noted that his appearance was almost human, even handsome by normal standards. She speculated that if that was the case, what was about to happen next was obvious. Damn, another girl with a dominant fetish. As Li Haoran reached out, their breaths nearly mingling, Li Haoran's mind spiraled. She questioned whether this was happening, and if she was about to give herself to a vampire, crossing a line she never thought she would. Li Haoran's voice broke the tension as he commanded her to repeat everything he said from then on. He began, "Subordinate Li Haoran swears eternal loyalty to you for all eternity. I will never betray you." Li Haoran, wide-eyed and flustered, stammered in confusion, asking if this was some kind of role-playing game. Li Haoran's tone turned icy, as he reminded her that he had spared her life and ordered her to obey. Li Haoran avoided his gaze and repeated, "Subordinate Li Haoran swears eternal loyalty to you for all eternity and will never betray you." She then asked if he was satisfied. The system notified Li Haoran that he had obtained his second follower and prompted him to check the details. The details revealed her name as Li Haoran, a 24-year-old human at the lower gold level of evolution. Her characteristics included great strength and a highly competitive nature. Though her appearance was cold and distant, she was pure-hearted and somewhat narcissistic, with a tendency to be drawn to dominant men. Her affinity was listed as 45%. Li Haoran moved closer to Li Haoran, their noses almost touching. He told her that she had done well and that he was satisfied. Li Haoran's breath quickened as her thoughts raced. She wondered if he was going to kiss her, and if this was how she would lose her first kiss. She questioned what would come next, admitting that, even though she had seen it coming, it felt too fast. Her eyes betrayed her desire. But Li Haoran stepped back, announcing that time was up and the reward ended there. Li Haoran blinked in confusion, asking if it was finished and what about the rest. Li Haoran replied that her two subordinates would regain mobility soon and instructed her to take them with her. He also warned her not to tell anyone about him and asked if she understood. Li Haoran nodded quickly, assuring him that she did. As Li Haoran turned to leave, he added that he didn't have any more time to waste on her and bid her goodbye. Li Haoran called out, stopping him. He turned, raising an eyebrow, and asked if she wanted more. She hesitated, covering herself with her hands, and explained that if her companions saw her like that, it would be awkward. She asked if he could help her. Li Haoran approached and handed her his coat. As she wrapped it around herself, she thought about how she could still feel his warmth and scent on the fabric. She found it too intimate and felt embarrassed. The system then notified Li Haoran that Li Haoran's affinity had increased to 50%. Li Haoran breathed heavily, her cheeks flushed as she gazed at him with longing. Damn, so making a girl madly fall in love is to master edging them? As the moon hung high in the sky, clouds drifted across the night, and a cold wind swept through the succubus village. Li Haoran sat quietly, reviewing his status screen. He reflected on the events of the day, noting that so much had happened at once. Not only had he reached level 21, but he had also unlocked several new skills. He felt a sense of exhilaration at growing stronger and resolved to keep pushing himself. His new skill was the hidden blood art, which allowed him to enter a state of invisibility for a short time. When attacking, he would reveal himself, dealing extra damage and recovering 5% of his HP. A system notification then appeared, informing him that he had reached level 21 and was now qualified to challenge the Bloodwell. It asked if he wished to participate. The note accompanying the notification explained that inside the arena, he would not gain experience. and wounds would not heal automatically upon leveling up or exiting the challenge. However, the rewards for completing the challenge were significant. It asked if he wanted to enter the Blood Hell Arena now. Li Haoran sat in thought, weighing his options. He considered that if he entered, it wouldn't matter if he won or lost. Any injuries he sustained wouldn't heal, which could slow his progress. Logically, it seemed better to wait until he was stronger. But after all the progress he had made, waiting felt unbearable. Finally, he stood up, determination flashing in his eyes. He declared, "Open the Blood Hell Arena." A red portal opened before him. He thought to himself, "They say wealth and power come to those who take risks. I'm ready. I don't care about the consequences anymore."